welcome back to another video. Today we got a 1 litre Eco Sport, which has obviously got an Eco Boost engine in it. So it's time for a wet belt. It's not massive miles, like 50,000 miles I think, but the customer's just a bit concerned, so wants to get it done before she has any major issues, which is exactly the right thing to do. So a lot like all the others, there's loads to take off before you can get to the belt. Changing the belt's quite a simple job. It's getting to it, which is a problem. What I'll do is I'll pull you in and you can see it's fairly well buried. So we've got to take a cat off the turbo, take all that off. That runs underneath the sump. You have to take that off to get the sump off to get the oil pump belt. All this intake, all the injectors have got to come out, fuel pump's got to come out, rocker cover's got to come off so we can get the timing tool on it. So yeah, you can see there's a fair bit there involved with it. But what we'll do is I'll get a bit of it done, get some of it stripped out, and then we can show you a bit more of the details inside. Right, so a little bit of a catch up. We're progressing nicely, as you can see. Got the cat off, that's gone. You have to take you don't have to take the battery out, but you've got to take the top starter bolt out for in a bit when we put the locking tool in. So I just whip the battery out, it just makes it so much easier to get to that bolt. As you can see, the fuel rail's gone. I leave the injectors in and then you haven't got any open holes for anything to drop into. All the coil packs are gone, rocker cover's gone. Now we can see the belt as well once we get the rocker cover off. And this one is, as you can see, it's starting to flake away a little bit and break up like they do. I'll be able to inspect it a little bit better when we've got it off. Down the front, alternator's off. I've got to whip the water pump out. Take the aircon pump off. I leave it hanging so we don't have to disconnect it and repressurize the system, but you just have to get it out of the way because it bolts to the front engine cover, which is also engine mount. So my next job will be up in the air, get the sump off, do all we got to do in the sump. Well, there's not really a lot we can do for a minute. Give it a clean up. I always just clean up before I put any new belts on, and then the good clean up, clean it all out, and then the belts go on so there's no contamination of anything on the new belts. Other than that, yeah, it's going really well. Problems and bits you come across, the 4 bolts that hold the cap to the turbo can be a pain. They don't like to come out. These have all come out lovely. I try and get that done pretty early, and obviously we've run the vehicle up with an engine flush in it, so there's a bit of residual heat still in them, which I think helps. So a little bit of lubricant on them and then get them straight off as quickly as you can after you've run it up, because we put an engine flush in, dump the oil out. I've done that earlier, so that's draining, and whilst I'm underneath draining, there's a couple bolts obviously on the rear of the cat. There's a 2-flange bolt and then a couple bolts that hold it to the bottom of the sump, so whip them off when you're down there and then the cat's ready to go. That's quite an awkward little cat to get off. There's covers and stuff that hold it on, but once you've done it once, you sort of get used to it. But yeah, other than that, next job is up in the air. There's 1 bolt in the aircon pump that can be a bit of a problem, but hopefully that should come out. I'll point that out to you later when we get that far. But yeah, for now, up in the air and attack the bottom. Right, so as you can see, we're underneath now. There's a sump. This is the aircon pump that you have to take off because some of the fixing bolts go into the cover, so obviously you can't get the cover off with the aircon pump on. This bolt here, only this one, all the other 2 are the similar sort of setup, but this one seems to give a little bit of trouble. It seizes in there. I don't know whether it's because it's fairly open to the elements with the wheel being obviously just next to it, but yeah, that's the one that gives trouble. But that's how I do that. I just drop it down and then sort of leave it there. When the sump's off, it'll swing a bit more. Other stuff we've got to take off. You can leave the drive shaft in, but we've got to take this bracket off. So there's 2 13s that hold a plate on. Take that off and then take the bracket off, so you can put the bracket for the torque converter on, so then we can do up the crank bolt later on, and I use a torque converter to undo it. Just makes life easier. Obviously ringer sump bolts got to come out. There's a couple there that go into the bellows and then the gearbox. Whip them out, and then you can just see, you can't, it's dark, up here is a little 10mm. That's where the timing pin goes in. So once the sump's down, I take that out, and then you can see that it's going to touch and line up, get all that lined up. There's some caps that go on the cams, also that lock the cams, but I'll show you all that when we get to it, and how I set it up and stuff. And then, yeah, it's undo the crank, take the starter out, put the locking tool for the crank in where the starter goes, then we can undo the crank, and then you're sort of away. And yeah, that's the worst of it done, and then it's get it back together. But like I say, as we're doing the bits, timing and stuff like that, I'll touch base with it again. Right, so we're just getting all the timing set up now. So in the kit we've got, which is I think is a laser kit, seems really good. You've got these caps that sit on the camshafts. So one's got inlet, you can't see it, but it's got inlet written on that one, and exhaust written on that one, in retrospect to which camshaft it goes on. The inlet one goes on the rearmost lobe. So knowing from having done a few now that this lobe, that lobe is obviously mirror image to that one. This lobe needs to be at sort of about 1-2 o'clock, and then we know we're sort of pretty close timing wise, and then we can go down to the crankshaft, and there's a pin that goes in there, and it locks up against, or it goes into the back of the block and locks against the crank, and obviously that one should line up. If they don't line up, then you're obviously not doing something right, or the timing's out, or that might be why you've got the vehicle apart. But yeah, they should all just clip in lovely, and just like I said, snug them down. What I'll do is I'll put the ramp up and show you the pin in the back of the block. I've got the sump off now, so we can actually see where it goes against on the crank. So I'll just put the ramp up, and then we can see that. Right, so you can see here, this is the pin. We remove a 10mm bolt, and then that pin, you wind that in, do it up finger tight, and then that locks against the end of the crank, or there's a flat on the crank then, and that pushes up against that. So when you're timing it up, you can turn the crankshaft and dunk up against it, it goes. And then we've got the starter out. So our next job is build up the locking tool, because it comes apart, put that together, and then we lock the crank, and we know we're all timed up, so we can lock it in that position, and then we can I use it to undo it because it just makes life easier. Put the torque converter on, then we can undo the crank bolt, and we know we're all good. So that's my next job, will be put the locking tool in where the starter goes, put the torque converter on, get the crank bolt undone, crank pulley off, and then we can look at getting the cover off, and then getting the belts changed finally. So yeah, it takes forever to get there, but once you're in there, it's not that big of a job to change the belt. It's just getting to it really. Right, so there we are, one wet belt. Not in the worst condition, but it is starting to break up. Like I said earlier, you can just see the surface of the belt starting to break up. That'll become more evident when we get the belt off and we bend it the wrong way, so the teeth are on the outside, and you can open it up and you'll really start to see sort of how much is breaking up and the degradation of the belt. So next job is get the tensioner off, or release the tensioner, get the belt off. Again, give it all a good clean up, make sure everything's clean before the new belt goes in, and then there's no contamination, no dirt or anything getting on it. Yeah, and that's sort of where we are. So we'll get that bit done, get the new belt on, release the tensioner, get the tension on the new belt, change the oil pump belt whilst we're there, obviously that's why we've got the sump off, and then clean up the covers, clean up the sump, and start to put it all back together. But once I get the belt off, I'll show you what sort of state the inside of the belt's in. Right, as you can see, the new belt's on, all tensioned. Do that, you do up the tensioner and then just pull the pin out, that tensions itself. The new oil pump belt's on, that's all fitted, everything's cleaned up, ready to go. So I've got all my bolts ready, I lay them out like that, I know where they've got to go then, no confusion, makes life so much easier. The covers down here, all prepped and ready, all the sealers on, so that's all good to go. So now we'll lift the cover on, torque all that up. That's all good. Then we can start building it back up, get the engine mount back on, and do all them bits and bobs. And yeah, just get it back together and get it running. Right, so we're back underneath. Just before I finish up and put the sump on, I forgot to mention this earlier. This is one of the main problems when the belt breaks up, other than the belt breaking. It blocks the oil pickup in the sump. So you can see in there that there is bits of belt, and there's bits of belt in the sump as well. When you clean it out, there was bits in there. So yeah, this one, like I said, isn't particularly bad, but there is bits in that pickup that shouldn't be there, and that is bits of belt. You can see that's red. And what I'll do now is show you the inside of the belt, like I said earlier. So we'll go down here to the old belt. And you can see in the inside of the belt's that sort of reddy colour, and it is, you can see the teeth are starting to come off. It's breaking up on the edge there, you can see a strand coming off of it. So yeah, that is when people have oil pressure issues, that's why, because this is breaking up, the belt's breaking up and blocking that oil pickup. So we'll give that a good clean out before the sump goes back on. So now you can see from down here we've got the engine cover back on, engine mounts back on. So we'll get the sump cleaned up, get all that put back on, and then we can torque the crank bolt in. That's a process on its own. Ridiculous torque, that's why you've got a torque converter. But we'll get all that done and then we'll touch base again. Right, so here we go, all done. I obviously left it overnight to put the oil in, which I like to do because sealant and stuff, give it a good chance to go off. So come back in this morning, finish off a few little bits, filled it up with oil, filled it up with coolant. That's all done. I've just given it a road test. It seems absolutely spot on. I had to top the coolant up a little bit when I come back, because it took a little bit. I've plugged it in, done a scan for any codes, cleared all them down, because when I first crank it, I leave the coil packs unplugged, which is obviously them three there. I unplugged the high pressure fuel pump, not high pressure, DI pump, sorry. And just over the back of the crossover is a plug for the injectors. So I leave all that unplugged, and then there's no chance of it firing. Give it a crank 3 or 4 times to get some oil pressure up, make sure everything's circulating right, and yeah, other than that, it's all done. Like I say, road tested it, drove lovely. So another one finished. I'll just give it a bit more of a road test, make sure the heat is 100% hot, and then can go back to its rightful owner. And it's another one finished, and we'll see you on the next video. Obviously, don't forget to do all the important bits, like, subscribe, bell notification button. Any comments you have, questions, anything like that, chuck them in the comment section. More than happy to reply to them as long as they're sensible. And if you're obviously local to us and you want us to do the job for you, give us a call and we can get you booked in. And we will see you again. Bye bye.